in. I'm Randy Cross, and this is
Brian Stan. Yeah. Hey,
Life is Timing. And we are Unsafe Spaces. Brand new blog on the blog here, brand new podcast that we want to bring you, that we're trying to just sort of express a few opinions, both in the world of sports and in general.
Yeah, have some fun with it too, and just share some funny opinions. And obviously, both of us in television, one of the drawbacks being a sports analyst is you never get the time to fully explain things. So I know when I call fights, the fight's over, I got to go on to the next one. Mm-hmm. And so obviously I have my show on Sirius every Tuesday night, and I could expand upon certain things. Hey, this is why I said this, because this research, when I talked, this athlete talked about this, but you never really get the open space like you do at a podcast. I remember when I did Joe Rogan's podcast, that was one of the things he explained to me, he talked to me about, is you have this new platform where you can talk about anything, and you've got all the time you want to go into more details and explain yourself, instead of just being able to put out a soundbite that people can then quote mine and send on Twitter and try and use against you.
Yeah, that's an exciting part. Same thing with football games.
Yeah.
Because in what we do on a regular basis and what everybody out there does every single day, it's all about things that are crossing your mind. It's all about conversations. I mean, we talk in 15 to 20 second clips if we're talking a long time in TV.
So someone's in your ear saying, rap.
Yeah. But how often do you do that in real life when you're having a real conversation?
Yeah. Absolutely. I agree. It's quick to the point where, especially, at our age, we married, kids, there's priorities, there's other things going on. Yeah. I agree. And here, unlike other parts, it's funny. The thing about the internet, right? You say something and then everybody just spits venom at you, right? It's one side or the other.
That's a sure sign you're doing it right, though.
Yeah. We can no longer have good conversations. And if you decide that you're going to change your mind on something, then you're flip-flopping on an issue. I like to call that reserving the right to get smarter, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, I've had my mind. I'm proud of the times that I've been able to speak to an intelligent person and have them enlighten me, change my mind, and I leave the conversation smarter. My opinions changed. I don't look at that like a fault. And so for me, that's really where I think this name comes from, the Unsafe Spaces, where we're going to talk about whatever we want to talk about. And we're going to bring on different guests who have opinions from all different sides of the aisle, who have different experiences to enlighten us, enlighten our listeners, and make it fun, but give everybody an opportunity to say their piece and respect their opinion.
Yeah, and exactly what you're talking about is they're not all going to be UFC fighters.
Nope.
They're not all going to be college football or NFL players. Some are going to be completely out of left field. So if people are out there and they're saying, you know what, I enjoy things that are staying in their lane, we may not be for you.
Yeah.
If you're looking for us to stay in our lane, we're like texting while driving. So there's no chance. There's no chance we're going to stay in our lane.
Absolutely not. Besides, with my big ass head, I can't stay in a lane anyways.
Yeah, don't talk about heads. All right. And every show we'll each sort of open up with stuff that's sort of on our minds.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to call it, a monologue or whatnot. And why don't you go first?
Sure. Obviously for me, I think it's on a lot of our minds. And I hate to go heavy on show one, but what took place in Manchester is just something that every time we see one of these attacks on innocent people, it hits me right in the heart, and it hits everybody. It's awful. People go to a concert to enjoy themselves, to celebrate, have a great time. And you've got people out there in the world who use these as events to push their agenda, to cause terror, to create fear, to kill innocent people, knowing that there's going to be young, innocent people who haven't even had a chance to experience all the things in life yet and take their lives. It's disgusting. I agree with the branding calling them losers. They should be shamed. I don't want to glorify him. I'm not even going to mention the person's name because he doesn't deserve it. It's disgusting that these groups continue to do that. And I get in arguments with people sometimes when we start talking about philosophies and ideologies that take place, Western culture, Middle Eastern culture, Eastern culture, the globe, and what we want to talk about. There's a lot of people that don't want to admit that true evil does exist in the world. Not everything is is driven by what people perceive. There are legitimately evil people out there. I've met them. I've seen them. I've seen it firsthand during my time in the service. And it's very, very sad.
You've shot at a few.
I have certainly shot at a few, dropped bombs on a few as well. That evil exists, and it's unfortunate, man. I mean, I challenge you to find me a more violent species on this planet other than human beings. I mean, time and time again, I am just disappointed by us, but I'm not giving up hope. We can definitely be better than this.
And that's great. I mean, there's nothing to add to that. I think it's just the disappointing problem, or the disappointing part of that whole thing, and we talked about this earlier, but is you like to have solutions.
Yeah.
Tend to be a solution-oriented person. And you get asked for what's the solution to that. Well, it's not that easy.
No, it is a long, there's no short-term solution, right? A lot of the short-term solutions people come up with actually benefit the bad guys. Well, hey, let's ban everybody. Let's lock down the borders. Let's do this. That's a short-term solution that is going to greatly increase the funding that goes to groups like Al-Qaeda, ISIS, Taliban. It's going to increase their recruitment. They thrive on the disenfranchised, the people that feel like they've been shit on by society. They thrive off that. That's going to help them. We need the smartest people in the world, the biggest students of history in the world, to really help us to come up with long-term strategies to fight the root of this, where people are born believing that this is the way they want to live, vice being free and enjoying life.
When you first saw the video when this occurred, and then they showed some of the stuff from the outside of the stadium that actually included the sound, was there any doubt in your mind, as someone that's been in a war type condition, that was not a balloon popping next to a microphone?
No. There wasn't much doubt. And just thinking, when I found out the timing and the demographic of the target, a lot of things aligned with what I've seen before. And so it was, I mean, it hit me right. I've got a 9, a 7, and 3-year-old daughter. That's the type of concert that they'd be asking Daddy to take them to. They know they love Ariana Grande. They would love to go to that concert. And to think that there were families that were there that lost loved ones that are now permanently injured and scarred from this event, not to mention what happens to them mentally, right? I mean, you will get post-traumatic stress from an incident like that if you're a child and you've gone through that can change you for life. It's just disgusting that there's people out there that think that this is what we want to do to push our agenda. You're disgusting. You deserve to die, but we've got to be smarter. Don't look at the short-term solutions. How do we win this long-term? Long-term, and that's how we have to view it. And it is just a sad state of affairs that in this day and age, as much technology and as much as we think we've evolved, right, we still have to deal with this. Like, this is still the way people think we can go about and solve problems or push our way of life. It's disgusting.
All right. Well, in a long-term problem like you wanted to talk about, I'm going to talk about something that I think is... the effects are long-term, but the problem itself hopefully is short-term. And it goes back to the concussions and the head injuries and whatnot in football that got put back into the news in the last week or so, when Tom Brady talked about, and his wife, Giselle, talked about, he gets those all the time. I mean, he comes home. Yeah, well, he's been affected. And most people you talk to will tell you the exact same thing. Yeah. I mean, you fought for a living. What was worse, after fights or after a hard week of sparring and working out? Or what's the difference?
Yeah, sometimes there was none. And it's scary because I'm 36. And so some of the symptoms that I'm going to deal with, that I could potentially deal with, they may not come on until my 40s. It's a scary thing to think about. And for you, I mean, you didn't play in this day and age where they had concussion protocols. You played in the day and age where, hey, you think you got a concussion, you got knocked out. Here's 2 aspirin. Get back out on the field, bro.
Well, that, and you didn't. If you could take an ammonia cap and sniff through it, you didn't have a concussion. If it didn't make you flinch and react, you didn't have a concussion. In fact, somewhere down the road, we'll be showing a picture of me actually with an ammonia cap, just hitting that thing hard before a game, just
to wake yourself
clear
up
everything up. But this whole issue of concussions is something that. I've donated my brain to the Concussion Legacy Foundation up in Boston. Chris Nowinski and them do unbelievable work.
It's amazing.
And I'm all for that. And I think it's time. The NFL better embrace this. And the easiest thing to do for them right now, and it's only money. And don't tell me you're concerned about image or anything else, because you now have a team in Las Vegas here pretty quick.
Yeah.
So gambling, there'll be a sports book in the stadium, probably a sports book that'll take all kinds of different bets. But they need to take those rosters, and instead of being 53, they've got to be 75. They've got to be 80. Because if you're looking at this subject correctly, you've got to have people to be able to play, because you're going to have guys that can't play football for a week, 2 weeks, maybe a month.
Yep.
And you've seen in a combat situation, when you get in an IED and those things happen, and you're in the proximity, not right next to it, obviously, but you're close, that affects you for a while.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I felt effects when I got knocked out in my last fight. It was 3 months later, I still had vertigo, legit vertigo. And I was telling you earlier, before the show started, I stood on the sidelines of a couple Atlanta Falcons games 2 years ago. I mean, I'm a huge NFL fan. I played football my whole life through college. But at that level, I mean, when they hit each other, it sounds like cars crashed on a highway. Mm-hmm. These athletes are hitting each other so hard. There's no way that there aren't these small micro concussions consistently throughout that game.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's time that the NFL really embraces that. It will cost them more money.
They're making enough of it.
But I love this game, and I get questioned all the time. You must hate football now. You're talking about concussions, and No, I'm talking about this stuff because I love the game.
Yeah.
Because I want to see young kids get a chance to play football. Now, because I believe that you shouldn't play football till the 9th grade. Does that mean I'm not wrong. I know that.
No.
But does that mean I hate the game? No, I think it makes it safer. I think you can teach kids technique until then. And that's unbelievable. Nobody talks about that, but that's what has to happen.
Yeah.
Plus, in concert with taking this subject much more seriously, because there are too many guys out there, and in the news as we go through 2017, you will have at least, and this is just a ballpark, I'm grabbing a number, 6 to 8 guys, great former players, that you're going to either run into, you're going to see him in the news, you're going to hear him on the news, you go, wow, that guy he used to sound different than that.
Yeah.
And that's the reality.
Yeah.
And you've got to take care, because the game is just, it is that dangerous.
And I think that because their brand is so big, they're paving the way for other sports. I mean, if the NFL takes a strong stance to get this right, we're going to see something, mixed martial arts is a very young sport. It's less than 20 years old.
Yeah.
We've got to get ahead of this as well. And a lot of it, I agree. I love these sports. Both of them. I love them, right? And we as athletes, we make the conscientious choice to do them despite the risks. However, especially in your time, you had no idea about the risks. You were never given that opportunity.
That's what I like to refer to as making an informed decision.
Yes.
And that's always my comeback to people, because you talked about the venom when you post something on Twitter.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm always talking about this, and it's one of my favorite subjects. And I'll get the immediate, you guys, what a bunch of losers. You knew exactly what was going on. Well, no. I mean, it's a fact that the NFL and whoever kept this basically under wraps for a good period of time, well after I was retired.
Yeah.
So there were generations that grew up. The only ones that have really made an informed decision, realistically, are the ones that have played since 2000.
Yeah. Yeah. That really understand it at the college level and at the NFL. I agree. I mean, I graduated in 2003 and playing college football. We had no idea. We didn't know. I mean, we had guys. I remember one kid got knocked out in the spring game, came off, his tongue was hanging out of his mouth. He was back to playing in 3As. Yeah. I mean, you're back lifting weights shortly, which you're not supposed to do either.
Exactly.
We just didn't know. Yeah. We didn't know.
Or they put you on a bike and you got your heart beat up. Another thing you're not supposed to do.
Yeah, great idea. Great idea.
All right, so that's a couple of things that we have on our mind. We want to kind of move along to something now that it will be a regular part of our show.
My favorite.
Yeah. And that's Butthurt of the Week. Butthurt of the Week seems fairly self-explanatory, To me, at least, it's something.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite terms to call somebody being butthurt. But it's going to be people either in sports or outside of sports. Like, for instance, this Matador, currently butthurt.
Yeah. Not feeling too good. I mean, that's, and I fail to feel bad for him. I really do. I feel that if you get a horn up the ass while you're bullfighting, if you've trapped this bull and you're going to systematically kill it and destroy it in front of all these people, I got no issues.
Karma's a bitch,
It really is. It really is.
Well, our first example from the world out there of butthurt of the week is Sunday, Jason Day. Oh. Imagine this. The next time you're either at a public golf course, a club, a putt-putt course that still exists out there somewhere, mark off 4 feet and 4 inches. That's how far Jason Day was away from making a putt to continue a sudden death overtime at the Byron Nelson Classic Sunday. He misses the putt. So he misses the putt. No big deal. You don't win a tournament. No big deal. Well, watch him miss this and consider he loses $540,000 because that's the difference between first place and second place just by missing this itty-bitty putt.
Now, see, I am no golfer, Randy, but you know golfer, but I am a really good mini golfer, so I will critique this.
So you can putt.
Oh yeah, I can putt. It's the only thing I can do. I can't do anything else. Ooh, it didn't even rim. Like, it didn't even hit the rim and slide around and then kick out.
That's called not drawing hole.
$540,000. That's what he's thinking about right now. He's not thinking like, how did I make? He's thinking all the things he could have paid for with $540,000. Now to put that in perspective, I fought for a considerable amount of time, decent amount of time. I ended my career shortly. My gross public earnings was not even $540,000. So he missed a putt that would have paid him more than I ever made to get in, over 10,
That's how much he didn't make last week.
Yeah.
That'll make you butthurt.
I'm becoming butthurt during our own butthurt of the week, by the way.
Number 2 in the butthurt of the week, something that you could actually literally, if you would happen to be a surfer in Southern California, you could get butthurt over this. And that is on 2 different occasions in the last week, Southern California beaches in San Clemente and San Diego have been closed. Sometimes you close it because of oil spills.
Yeah.
Sometimes beaches,
jellyfish,
riptides
Yeah.
can get really, really bad. No. How about great white sharks?
Sure.
A couple days ago, 25 are spotted. Now, if they're under about 10 feet, great whites are considered adolescents.
Okay.
So that's why
under 10 feet.
when they referred to these sharks, that they said were all between 8 and 10 feet long.
Okay.
Which I imagine, because if it's in the water, might look a tad bit bigger when they're next to you.
Yeah.
They were all in the adolescent range. They were all 8 to 10, but there was 25 of them in this one little area in the beach in San Clemente. Then they were sighted in North County, San Diego, which isn't too far from there.
So you got all these surfer dudes on the beach pissed off. Dude. I'll tell you what, though. I don't care. The adolescent thing scares me a little bit more. We were idiots when we were adolescents. I mean, especially if you're a guy and you're an adolescent, you're a mess. You're an absolute mess.
You're stupid and you'd eat anything.
Exactly right. What does that? What does that mean to a shark? I don't care if it's 8, 9, 10 feet long. It still can eat me. Right? I am not.
Oh yeah.
I am not in any hurry to surf above that.
Yeah. So that right there times 25.
Holy.
I got to think maybe you don't go surfing that day.
Yeah, I would think you'd be grateful, right? I'm thank you for clothing. Don't give me this, high as a kite. They're part of the ocean, man. Just let us surf with them, dude.
Yeah, tell me that. Tell me that when they bite your butt cheek off. Butthurt of the week. It might be that I'm butthurt about this particular next one.
Okay,
that's about the NBA. I don't know how much of the NBA you ever watch. If you're like most people, you don't watch till the NBA finals.
Yep. Because
nothing else matters.
To me, I was watching Cavs Celtics just the other night. First game I watched all season. That's me.
Did you watch the one where the Celtics won?
I don't know. I think I turned it off before it was over. The Cavs were so far ahead, it wasn't a game.
That wasn't the one.
Okay.
Well, they won the other night. And LeBron was going to be on the butthurt list because he was such a kind of whiny little baby after the game. But it's more the process. NBA regular season barely matters. You get a playoff position. But is there really any contention about the NBA Finals are going to be the Golden State Warriors and the Cleveland Cavaliers?
And what were the odds? How much money could you have made by betting on those two teams preseason? I guarantee
not very much.
You win $5. You put $100 down to win $5 probably.
You'd have had to bet a lot of money to make money.
Yeah.
Because they were the prohibitive favorites. So when I get told about how great this is and how healthy it is, I'm still trying to figure out how the NBA, but it is incredibly popular. I understand that. They now have a massive amount of money in the sport in Fusion because their salary cap is getting ready to go through the roof.
It's almost non-existent
well,
compared to football.
In the NBA, it's different
because
you're going to pay a tax above a certain number. And penalties above a certain number if you spend above it.
So you could still break the rules.
But some teams, it's like baseball. Remember when the Yankees were winning the titles back in the 90s and the early 2000s? They were paying an unbelievable amount of money in a tax. And that to me.
But now the NFL has a hard ceiling that they can't go over.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah. And then obviously, with injuries and everything else, there's a lot more variables involved in trying to build a great team in the NFL. I mean, there's just a lot more.
You've got to have guys available, and that goes back to what I was talking about with concussions. And it's going to cost you more money. You're going to have a higher salary cap, but you'll have more players around. Number 4 on our list for Butthurt this week. Maybe one of the more fun stories we came across this week.
Yeah.
You'll love this out there. Indianapolis 500 qualifying was last weekend. And James Dixon Scott Dixon is the name of the driver. Great job. In fact, number 1 qualifier, 232 miles an hour. And he and his wife decide they're going to get a little something to eat after qualifying. They've been doing media responsibilities.
And these guys make good money, too.
They make great money.
Yeah.
And there's an ex-driver, very famous gentleman by the name of Dario Franchitti, he raced Formula One.
Okay. And
a little bit of Indy, but mainly Formula One. He's the ex-husband of that nasty woman, Ashley Judd. But they decide to go to Taco Bell.
Prestigious place.
Fine dining.
Yeah, fine dining.
And as a result, and it's about a mile and a half, something like that, from the track, they get robbed. And they take not only, well, this is the best way to describe it. See, here you go. Scott Dixon almost joined him. See, you can't say he's not a smart guy.
Look at this guy complaining. I don't know. It's like you're going through a drive-thru. I'm never going to be like alert in a drive-thru.
Who would be alert in a drive-thru? Yeah. But they got Dario's wallet. They got Scott's wallet. They even got the wife's.
That's the worst part. I'd much rather give it my wallet than to give it my wife's. She'd be so pissed. Oh, is this the video of them get robbed?
So where isn't there a well-lit space in a drive-thru? So a guy walked up to the drive-thru, robbed the Taco Bell, and robbed them.
He got Taco Bell too?
That's when you know for a fact you're having a pretty crappy day.
So he got Taco Bell. So he got the drivers and he got Taco Bell.
Yeah. Well, that guy did.
Oh. Yeah, I mean, I should be taking a much harder stance in this. There's something that's a little bit comical about rich people getting robbed in a Taco Bell drive-thru that just doesn't pull the compassion out of me.
Didn't you love the tips though? What do you do? You look for a well-lit area. Well, they're all well lit.
Oh, they need to take some lessons off my buddy Tim Kennedy. He's constantly posting stuff about making yourself hard to kill. I mean, he trains, he works out every day. This guy shoots all the time, and it's all about making yourself hard, be the hardest person ever to kill. Of course, guys like him never get robbed at a Taco Bell drive-thru.
Oh, no, of course not.
He would pray. Like, he sits there and he prays for these things to happen to him.
They tend to stay away from people with carry permits and body armor.
Well, and that's the problem for Tim. I mean, one, he's built like a hobbit on steroids, right? Because he's not very tall. He's as wide as he is tall, and he's jacked.
He's
right?
vertically challenged.
But he dresses the part, right? He's got cargo he dresses nice, but you could smell the special forces all over him from 100 miles away. Dude, you're not doing yourself any favors. Go buy some skinny jeans. Don't wear any socks with your shoes, right? Get some European-style polos. Throw some gold chains on. He's got to change it. Now he may actually get robbed. He's still going to look muscular as hell and all that stuff, but he at least ups his chances.
I love it. And our last little part here in Butthurt, UFC. We were talking in the UFC world.
Yeah.
And you've got a few things to talk about. But one thing I wanted to just remind you of is, and it really was the McGregor-Mayweather thing that set something off in my brain. In that, is there anybody in the UFC world that's huge, that's, I don't know, over 135, 40 pounds?
Huge is in terms of brand
star. I mean, it seems like UFC, and this is an outsider. I'm an outsider. My view from the outside in is, women for a while with Rousey, but with McGregor and some of the smaller guys, that's where all the action is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you're outside the space that I'm in, right? I'm in the hardcore space. We live it, we breathe it, we check it every day. The numbers agree with your opinion. I mean, the biggest pay-per-view draws, the people that are selling north of 500,000 buys, well, probably north of 400,000 buys, were Conor and we're Ronda Rousey. Rousey does not look like she's ever coming back.
No.
And now Conor's in a holding pattern. He just had a baby, and they're trying to see if this Mayweather thing can come out. So certainly all of us MMA fans are butthurt because you've got different weight classes on hold. And Conor's current weight class at 155 pounds is by far the best division in the sport of mixed martial arts.
How many guys stacked up in that division?
Stacked. I mean, it's stacked, but you've got 4 legitimate guys who can make a case for a title shot in this division. And none of them can because we got to see what happens with this. Is Conor going to return by fall time? Do we need to create yet another interim title? Right, where we've had interim titles before and everybody gets frustrated with them, but sometimes they're necessary due to injury. But in this case, it's because a guy's trying to do a boxing match, which I can understand. I can understand from his perspective, but it's really challenging. But yes, that is for the sport moving forward. That is going to be the challenge. But we got spoiled, right? 2016, we have such short memories in it. 2016 was the greatest year ever for the UFC. Financially, everything. Biggest numbers.
The pay-per-views were unbelievable.
Huge. So here we are. We're not even a year later. And the sport's going downhill. Well, things change, right? It's not, you're not always going to have this mountain of stars to build off of. They had 2 at the time. It's going to take some time. And I'm hoping WME-IMG, the new owners, I mean, they've got their hands in everything when it comes to celebrities.
Right.
They know how to build stars. I'm hoping that there are long-term strategies to do so. You can't tell me they don't have the pull or the power to take some of these amazing athletes we have in this sport who are on the fringe of being big-time stars and get them into different movie roles. Joanna Jędrzejczyk is a great example. She's the female strawweight champion. She's phenomenal.
Yeah.
She has put on performances in her last couple of fights that are just so damn dominant. Beautiful technique. She's got a great personality. People love her. She's from Poland. She's a massive star there. She's on the fringe of being a big star here. Get her some small roles in some big time films. That's only going to help elevate her status. Demetrius Johnson, our flyweight champion, he's the best fighter in my opinion ever. There's nobody who's ever been a better mixed martial artist, skill wise, technically, than this kid. Mm-hmm. He smokes everybody, but he's small, so people don't want to watch.
How about the Cuban we were talking about at 185?
Yoel Romero, and look, he would have made this list for like the last 3 months, the butthurt of the week, because he just can't get a title shot, right? He's the next in line. He's the number 1 contender. Out of nowhere, Georges St. Pierre says he's coming back. And Georges St. Pierre is going to get a title shot at 185 immediately upon his return against Michael Bisping. And man, I mean, Romero is pissed. Rightfully so, right? He earned it, but GSP is GSP. He was the Michael Jordan of Canada for a very long period of time. Well, it looks like GSP's schedule, he had to continually push this fight back. Michael Bisping has a knee problem. Bisping's been fighting forever. Who could blame him for wanting to fight GSP, right? A fight against GSP on pay-per-view, he makes probably in the $3 to $5 million range with how many buys he's going to get. A fight against Yoel Romero on pay-per-view, maybe he makes $1 million. Who would you want to fight? Oh, by the way, can you guys Google and throw up on the screen a picture of Yoel Romero, Yoel Romero, spelled how you would expect. See if we can get that. So for those listening, I imagine most of you have heard of this guy and seen him before. Yeah. But I don't care how much money you're getting paid. Like, you don't want to fight this dude. But it was just decided he's going to get an interim title shot against Robert Whittaker, who's another phenomenal middleweight, who's coming off a great win over Jacare Souza. But Yoel Romero is the kind of guy where sometimes he lulls you to sleep. There have been fights of his where I've been unimpressed just strategically, fight IQ-wise, because he makes these mistakes. He's an all-time world-caliber wrestler, and he'll get taken down in fights by a jiu-jitsu guy, right? And it's happened before.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden something clicks. Like, he just makes a decision at some point in the fight. I now want to destroy you. Like, I'm going to end you right now. And he does it. He was fighting Lyoto Machida in this boring tactical bag, just kind of playing with him. Then all of a sudden he decides in round 3, I'm going to take you down. And then he just elbows him into oblivion. He was losing to Derek Brunson, getting taken down, being soundly beat 2 rounds to none in the 3rd round. Look at this guy. Look at this guy. Yeah.
And he's how old?
He's 40.
Oh, yeah.
That is a specimen. I mean, he'll fool around these fights. He's losing Derek Brunson, 3rd round, he breaks his jaw and wins the fight. Now, he's had some questionable things. I mean, he's held the fence. He stayed on the stool too long. I'm not going to get into all that. I mean, it's not necessarily relevant right now.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is, we're going to get an interim title fight between him and Whittaker. Finally, he deserves it. Whittaker deserves it. We'll see what happens. With that. And for Michael Bisping, he's got knee issues. The guy's been fighting for a long time. He's been fighting since he was 15 years old. But he's got lingering issues. I've worked with him on television. There's some lingering issues he's dealt with. And he's happy to, hey, go ahead and have an interim title. I'll be back when I'm back. But he's pretty butthurt that this GSP fight's not going to happen, because you're talking millions of dollars that he may no longer be getting.
Not as butthurt as our guy. All right, that'll do it.
How deep that was.
That'll do it for Butthurt of the Week. Let's take a short, brief little break, and we'll be right back. All right. Next up on the hit parade, Brian, is some real world news. I guess we could call this getting out of our lane, but it'll be real world news. And our first subject almost sounds like a highlight from the old Brady Bunch show with one of the sisters complaining, Marsha. But in this case, it's Russia.
Interesting stuff. I mean, this has become, for the longest time, last year, it was the Republicans and it was Hillary Clinton's emails. It was nonstop. There was something in the news, and they kept the news now this year, it's the flip side. Now it's the Democrats, and it's constantly Russia. However, I don't think we're getting through with this anytime soon, because as they lift that rock up a little bit, we're finding more and more out. And with the firing of Comey and how it went down, and now the memos he kept, it's only going to increase speculation. And as you said, we're not being given many facts here at all.
Like none.
Yeah.
Except for the occasional head of intelligence people saying, yes, there's an investigation. No, we don't have anything yet.
I mean, it's got to be tough in this administration as they try to get things done and push anything forward, but they have to constantly, it's like their feet are stuck in the mud, which greatly benefits Democrats, obviously, especially if there's special elections that are taking place like here in our district, out in Montana. As much as they can keep this a highlight, and they can win some of those and get some wins in the House and Senate. So I know it's bothering you an awful lot, but I don't think this is going away anytime soon.
And the one of the main things that bothers me about this is when you just consider they've been investigating this since last July. I mean, when I say they, I mean the FBI, the CIA, just the intelligence community has been digging in on this in their own little investigations since last July. Haven't found anything out. Now, Comey was able to comb through 60,000 emails and whatnot in about a 3-day period.
For Hillary?
But that's another thing. Now, the whole deal with this, I just, what takes so long?
Yeah. I mean, all I know is they're human beings. And if it's true, which we don't know, right? Because they're quote mining here. But if it's true that the president was pressuring Comey to drop his investigation of Flynn because he had something to hide,
right?
Maybe there's pressures that we just don't know about. And I think this won't go. And they've shown so much now that a lot of American people want to know. We want this finished. Hey, did Vladimir Putin and Russia, did they interfere in our election or not?
Because we're like Pavlov's dogs.
Yeah.
We've heard the bell loud enough. Now we want the answer to the question.
Well, but you know, when you look at some of the bigger situations of the world, you know, Russia and the Iranian influence in the Middle East, some of our interests, and what's going on with North Korea, you know, it matters, right? As Western civilization relinquishes any global presence, right? This guy's power only grows, and they're right there may be the most evil person on the planet, right?
Possible.
Most dangerous person on the planet.
Possible.
And I would want to know.
When I was a kid,
if he's got influence over here, I want to know.
When I was a kid, it was Nikita Khrushchev that was the boogeyman.
He was the boogeyman?
And Cuba and Castro and all that stuff that was going on. It's the Kremlin gets a lot of credit. And it's just a matter of how much you believe. How much? Where do you find facts in general?
I know. When it
comes to this stuff,
it's so filtered and
can you trust? Do you trust CNN?
No.
Do you trust Fox?
It's all about making money. It's all about ratings. You know that. And my time in TV has only added to that belief. It is all about ratings, and we saw that during the election. I mean, it's all about ratings and making money. The best news I get is through social media, only because it gives me access to frontline journalists. When you know, I follow journalists that
who are these journalists you speak of? Is that media people?
They're not. I mean, they write, and some of them are freelance. Some of them write for different publications.
I'm just kidding, but I mean, there are real journalists out there
that live in Syria, that live in or that are embedded there in Syria, Iraq, that are in the Middle East, that are reporting on things. That's even there, obviously, you're going to have personal bias sometimes involved, but you're going to get the closest you can to a raw story on exactly what they saw, what they're finding out, what their sources are telling them before it gets filtered and cycled through. And a lot of times, they don't have access to these major news publications. I mean, sometimes they write, but a lot of times their articles don't get read enough. But that's who I generally like to rely on to get my news, because you watch TV and it's garbage.
Hey, when you worry about Russia, do you think at the same time, while they're investigating, they're also going to come out and tell us about all the elections and all the countries that we meddle in?
Oh, God, no, they're not going to.
What the hell are you thinking?
Come on now, we don't want to do. I mean, you got. It's not. How many we have. I think the more impressive number would be how many simultaneously we've been involved in and influenced at one time. There's no doubt about it. We're going to reap what we sow.
Yeah.
In some regards here, and we've paid and continue to pay obviously a bigger discussion. We've paid a price for our involvement in countries and getting into things that really we had no business being involved in.
And our second one here on the news cycle, an actor that a lot of people out there may or may not be terribly familiar with, hasn't done a huge amount of work lately, Clint Eastwood. But you know, he made a statement, and it was all related to his Dirty Harry. If you haven't seen it, go to Netflix and put in Dirty Harry. There's a whole series of movies. A San Francisco kind of super cop that carried a .44 Magnum and all kinds of signature lines. And he was asked about that character coming back, and he said he thought he couldn't make Dirty Harry movies today. Because, he was of the opinion that as a people, we've just sort of lost our sense of humor.
Well, you know, I agree. I agree in some regards. As it pertains to the specific subject matter that he's talking about, you know, I don't necessarily think that that's where I would go with it, right? With police brutality and things of that nature. Look, we don't need any movies that will, and I didn't see Dirty Harry, so I don't know if this is true, that will fuel the fire or ignite.
It would.
Yeah. We don't need any of that crap right now, because you know what happens oftentimes is you get this huge group of police officers and first responders that do amazing work every day that nobody hears about. You put out a movie like that and it just brings all these other frustrations to light. I mean, we're trying as a nation to gain ground in that area. Now, just going back to the root of the statement, not going on police stuff and all that, I think we have. I think we have lost, and I don't know if it's necessarily our sense of humor, but at the same time, we've lost our ability to have controversial conversations where one side can share an opinion, and before you automatically decide that you hate them, you're actually willing to listen to them, respect their opinion, and then try to present facts on why they are wrong and you are right, and then debate and actually come to a great conclusion through enlightened, responses and arguments. We don't do that anymore. If
social media there's immediate F-bombs.
Oh, it's
and you're a racist or a Nazi or
constantly. You cannot we cannot talk about anything and deliberately talk about both sides of it and have both sides be accountable. I always relate it to marriage. How many arguments have you been in with your wife where you were 100% right?
According to me or her?
Well, I mean, just according to the actual outcome of what happened, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and not just my wife, but I mean, I don't remember many arguments that I get in where I'm 100% right. No. You rarely are. No. There's always percentages at both. There's somewhere here in
even
that
if
middle
you are,
ground.
It's usually not a good idea to point that out.
No, definitely not in marriage. But in a lot of these areas that our country goes through, we can't even have the discussion. Yeah. If we want to discuss entitlements, where the budget is a big topic right now because Trump is trying to pass his, and it cuts a lot of things. Yeah. A lot of things. Mm-hmm. And it's a difficult thing, but we can't have good discussions on it because automatically you're going to be told it's awful to cut all these things, right? Or you're going to be told we have to cut all these things because our deficit is so high right now, we've got to start turning a profit. Right?
But how often too, and this goes back to that, we just lost our sense of humor. There's also a code that people talk when it comes to certain things, like politics.
Yes.
It's like listening to you do a fight. You're going to use terms and phrases that a non-UFC, a non-fight fan that happens to be watching is going to sit there and go, the hell's that?
Yeah.
For instance, with budget cuts and whatnot, what you call a budget cut. If last year your department got $10 million and this year you're not getting any more than $10 million, that's a freeze.
Yeah.
In Washington ease.
Yeah.
If you were supposed to get $107 million with a cost of living or whatever increase, whatever that archaic term means now, but you only got 104.
Yeah.
That's a budget cut, publicity wise.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Again, so destroys nobody can get to the truth. They use these buzzwords and exactly right.
Back to what Clint was saying though, that you lost our sense of humor. Is that a form in your mind of, I don't want to get off on a huge tangent here, but I mean, is that another form of kind of a hindrance on free speech?
Absolutely it is.
That everyone's so worried about what people are going to think about what I say. And I mean, that's everybody.
We've gotten to the point now where I think people are excited and they anticipate and hope that somebody says something that they can jump on and say, hey, that insults me or that offends me. People literally you see these people online that their business is to point out when somebody has offended them by making a statement and make sure that it goes viral so they can bring hatred towards them rather than just say, okay, that's your opinion. I think it stinks, but you're entitled to it and move on with your damn life, right? We are all so sensitive right now and to where you can't get to truth if you have to be so careful on how you talk about a subject that you don't offend anybody. It takes forever to have a damn discussion and come up with a solution.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous, and I agree. I think it's a problem, and I don't know how we'll ever solve it. But when it becomes cool to no longer be so dang sensitive and sit there just waiting on Twitter for someone to say something insulting so that you can go back and spit venom at them, we're stuck with this.
Yeah, well, that's why they invented the block mode on Twitter.
I love that button. You want to talk
unfollows? Just not.
You want to talk about having a sense of humor? You got to see me when I open up my Twitter after I call fights. You should see some of the things that get said to me. Thank God I'm not. I haven't lost my sense of humor.
I get the same input after football games.
brutal. I don't like the way you call this fight. You're a murderer.
Yeah.
How does that play together?
Yeah. No. Hey, well, but speaking of which, sometimes, and our final note here from the news, sometimes people that are involved in the media actually kind of just say what they think.
Yeah, I prefer it this way.
Doesn't always come out great, but Anderson Cooper, for example.
I love it. He said during his exchange, it looked like, he was having a discussion with Trump supporter and CNN contributor Jeffrey Lord. And Cooper said to him, look, if Donald Trump took a dump on your desk, you would defend it. And he said that live on his show to him while they were going back and forth. And of course, people got offended by that, right? All the Trump supporters, hey, that's not right. You shouldn't be saying that. That's unprofessional. Come on. He was right. Yeah. This guy's going to defend anything he does.
Yeah.
Anything he does. He's not going to come on there and actually give his realistic opinion. He's just going to regurgitate whatever the agenda is of Donald Trump, our president. Come on. I understand where Cooper can be frustrated because it's his job to get to real opinions and he wants to get truth on his show.
Right.
Hard to do when you're bringing on people who come from one of the two sides of political fence where they're never going to cross. They're never going to cross their side. I thought it was funny. Whatever. If I'm watching CNN and I see that said, I laugh at that and I move on. I don't immediately take to Twitter and whine about it offending me or saying that was unprofessional by Anderson Cooper.
Yeah. But why are you having that guy on the air? Are you having that guy on the air because of his anti-administration views? Or are you having that guy on the air because of his pro?
You're bringing up a great point.
Administration views. So when he does give you what you're expecting.
If you were looking to get somebody to criticize him, you knew this wasn't going to be the guy.
You had the wrong guy on. No, I love that. Well, we're going to do a whole bunch more of this.
Absolutely.
Want to remind people out there that website-wise, that's coming. Unsafe Spaces, USA.com. On Twitter, it's Unsafe Spaces USA, at Unsafe Spaces USA, all one word there. And Facebook is also at Unsafe Spaces USA.
And join the conversation. If there's topics you want us to include on the show, if there's videos you want us to include on the show, hit us up. Send them to us on those, and we'll certainly include them. I hope you guys like our logo, by the way. Normally, when people draw characters like this with the boxes and everything else,
right,
they're teasing, they're boxing in their face. The guy who drew this for us actually made a comment when he was doing it. He said, look, this is the first guy I've ever had to do whose face literally is that square, whose head literally is that square. It's embarrassing.
I'll be honest with you, Brian. I twice had to tell him to make my head bigger next to yours. He put my head in there a couple of times smaller, and I went, no. I said, his head's really big, but then so's mine. So you got to make my head a lot bigger.
Well, at least you're fully clothed, right? What people don't know, I'm actually naked behind that Unsafe Spaces.
That's why we had the blackout behind Unsafe Spaces. All right. Thanks a lot. Enjoy it. See you on the next one.